Bournemouth was the backdrop for this year's CWU Annual Conference, with over 1,000 delegates and senior CWU officials debating industrial and political issues and agreeing new policies. This year saw keynote speeches from General Secretary Billy Hayes and Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls, 2 emergency motions and CWUHA's charity run. After being re-elected for his 3rd term, CWU General Secretary Billy Hayes addressed conference and looked back at the past year. He set out how the union needs to change.
These are difficult times indeed. These are very hard times for the CWU and the wider Labour movement. We knew with the defeat of the Labour Party at the last elections that times would be difficult. How difficult is only just becoming apparent. The ONS estimates that there will be an even bigger fall in wages in 2011. Over the past year, there's been a fairly intensive debate about the future of our union, because a major restructuring is underway in the industries in which we organise, so we have to respond to this. And of course, sometimes the debate seems to be about the potential loss of membership or the need to cut jobs. Actually, these are symptoms of the change, not the cause. The fact is that new technology, new services and new markets are changing the demands made upon the industries where our members work. I think the big challenge is obviously to grow the union, but to grow and to look at the issues of proportionality, the fact that the majority of trade unionists in Britain today are women, and that needs to be reflected in the leadership at all levels. So we've got a major review looking into the underrepresentation of women, underrepresentation of black and Asian people in the union. So having a big look at how we do our business and improving on the work that we've done this week and the big changes that we've made.
CWU has been a key supporter of Ed Balls over the past year, nominating him as the union's choice in the Labour leadership elections, and his continued support for the Keep the Post Public campaign. The Shadow Chancellor addressed delegates.
We appreciate the strong and challenging leadership that we've seen from your General Secretary Billy Hayes over the last few years, and also the tenacity of your members up and down the country in campaigning for what's right. It is working people, CWU members, who are seeing their living standards hardest hit by what's happening in our economy now. And then there's too the plan to privatise the Royal Mail. We all know the Royal Mail needs to modernise in the digital age. That's a modernisation which has actually been led in recent years by the CWU and your members. But we wholeheartedly back the campaign to keep the Royal Mail publicly owned. Why? Because, first of all, these plans threaten 300 years of a 6-day universal service in our country. Secondly, because there is nothing to ensure that the Royal Mail privatised works closely with the Post Office network. That's why we in Parliament have been pressing for a strong 10-year agreement between the Mail and the network, and that's what we'll continue to campaign for. And just as we need to defend the Royal Mail, we also need to stand up for the need to invest in our future. We all know universal broadband access is vital for the long-term future of our economy, and we will continue to work closely with the CWU to achieve that in the coming months. I do believe the future of our country as a fair and decent place to live is what's at stake. That is why I, Ed Miliband, as our leader, the whole of the Labour Shadow Cabinet will work with the CWU, with the wider trade union movement, to take the fight to the coalition and show there is a better and fairer way, a way which would work for jobs as well as for social justice. There is an alternative. And for the sake of millions of working people and their children, let us work together to deliver that alternative just as soon as we can. Thank you for inviting me.
Delegates voted in favour of 2 emergency motions, Emergency Motion 1 relates to the unfair treatment of agency workers and changes to company contracts. The union will use its power and influence to campaign against these changes.
The CWU have campaigned for 10 long years regarding the rights for agency workers. We've always had concerns regarding the complexity, the ambiguity and the lack of safeguards for employment rights and the attempt by employment agencies and hirers alike to circumvent their responsibilities. The CWU have stated to the government that we are not convinced that UK Regulation 10 meets the requirements of the directive, which is to provide adequate protection. The unfair treatment of agency workers in this country is one of the last enduring strongholds of workforce inequality. The CWU has campaigned for many years and we will not sit idly by and let our people be exempt for equal pay.
All those in favour, please show. Those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, Conference.
And Emergency Motion 2 deals with the current situation in Royal Mail, particularly the privatisation plans and the separation of the post office network.
The debate on privatisation of our industry is not over. The bill itself gives discretionary powers for the government to privatise. There is no way that anybody is going to buy Royal Mail until after the pension deficit has been taken off the books. Our job as a trade union is to think about the future. Our job is to make sure that whatever happens, the outcome is this union is here to stay. And that's why we're setting out there as one of our demands the opportunity to embed the union within the structures of the company before anybody attempts to privatise it. So for all the reasons the conference outlined in this proposition, we listened to what people said at that briefing. We've looked at what's coming our way, and there is a strategy here that can get our members a decent deal, and we want you to get behind that policy today, and when we go back to this conference, we are going to start that work to implement that policy.
All those in favour, please show. Down. Those against. That's carried.
It also covered Royal Mail's plan to cut 3 London mail centres. Following the shock announcement back in March, CWU balloted its members for strike action. Martin Walsh, London Divisional Rep, explains.
We've just received the ballot result and in all 4 sites which we've balloted, all have returned massive yes votes, 79% in favour of strike action. We're asking for Royal Mail to come back to the negotiating table. We put a fair solution to them. But it does mean that they will have to put people first rather than profit. If they don't, and they continue to bully people, as they are doing now, and keep on pushing towards compulsory redundancies, then we will take strike action.
Now let's take a look at other stories from conference. Delegates voted unanimously in favour of calling a coordinated 24-hour strike against the cuts and attacks on wages and pensions from the coalition government. A separate motion saw conference backing a call for a high-profile campaign against plans for legislation on employment, redundancy and workplace discrimination rights, ultimately making it easier and cheaper for employers to sack workers. And conference has agreed for the union to introduce a reps charter, setting out a mandatory training programme for new CWU representatives. And finally, running 900 miles non-stop from John O'Groats to Land's End is no easy task, but 5 CWU members took on the challenge to raise money for the union's humanitarian aid charity.
We wanted to make it something that, wasn't easy to do, something that was a worthwhile challenge. So it was not only a challenge for ourselves, pushing our bodies against the limits, but it was something that people could appreciate what we were going through.
We were looking for something that would raise awareness of the charity and get a real vibe around the charity and some interest, and from the charity's point of view, that's exactly what it's done.
The Established in 1995 by CWU, the charity raises money to better the lives of deprived families across the UK and Europe, with the help of BT and Royal Mail. Despite injury and lack of sleep, it's something the runners will never forget.
Just running through Glencoe, all the scenery, it was just absolutely amazing. And to boot, there was a guy busking there in the middle of the mountains with bagpipes, and you could hear it for miles and miles. Absolutely amazing.
It's something you won't forget for all sorts of reasons.
As soon as you reach there, well, about 2 miles away, all the pains and aches seem to go away. It was just a great feeling when we got there. Everything that we'd put in, everything that we'd gone through, emotionally, physically, actually doing what we'd set out to do for the cause we'd set out, it's just a fantastic feeling.
To find out more information about all motions and conference news, please visit the CWU website.